It's the Post Pod Show.
So, Lou, what is the Post Pod Show?
Jeff, the Post Pod Show came about and is an idea that you and I have been juggling around, but we didn't really think about. You see, you and I both happen to love sports teams. We love watching sports games. And if you're a fan and you watch it on television, when the game is over, there is a post-game show. What do they do in that post-game show? They break down everything that happened in the game. And you and I, as big fans, we would even watch it, even though we probably watched the whole game. And they'll go through all the analytics and the details and questions, even have interviews with people that they got involved with who played on the field in the post-game show. Well, in the world of podcasting, you and I have been at this for quite some time, and we have seen a ton of unbelievable things in a podcast show. So it came to my idea, and I threw it by you and said, wouldn't it be cool if we did something that actually looked at all the behind the scenes that go into producing a podcast show? Hence, the Post Pod Show was born, and it came to life in this way where we get a chance to do a deeper dive and share with everyone all the things that you and I get to encounter that go into making a podcast. That is what the Post Pod Show is all about.
Yeah, there's so many different things that, I appreciate that you've been doing this long enough and you have so many episodes under your belt. You've been doing this actually less time than me, but have more episodes under your belt. Like you are
because I'm a lunatic.
Yeah, you're definitely a little bit of a lunatic about it. I wish I had that level of consistency, but I don't. But I love talking to you about it because we immediately just started riffing on all of the things, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. And I think the part for me about podcasting that I find, or the part that I wanted to share about this that I thought was interesting, was there's so many things that are unintended benefits and unintended things that you just don't know are going to happen until they happen to you. And it's not until you've been through this world of podcasting for, in my case, I've been doing it since 2014, 2015, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's not until you've been doing it that long and had all these episodes that you kind of discover all of these things. And people go into I want to start a podcast. I get this great idea. They make it 3 episodes and they're out. It's not until you've recorded 50, 60, 70, 100, 200, several hundred after that you really start to see some of those things. I'm actually curious as we do this, some of the things I'm going to learn from your experiences that I haven't yet experienced.
Oh, and the same. And I think listeners, viewers, and whatnot. And by the way, the other parts about this that made this so funny was Jeff and I created this content in the reverse order. Most people will come up with a great episode in a podcast and then figure out how to market it, how to tell the story of it, how to figure out what everything else. No, we did everything in the exact opposite order. We figured out what was the end product that people would want to see to watch the show first, and worked our way back down into saying, we really should make this into a show, which is absolutely ass backwards of what most people would ever think about. But that's actually part of the story and the content that people enjoy the most. Yes. And I think that's what's so funny about all of this, right? It's like they're going to hear about this show through some very interesting, entertaining, unique ways of promoting something. And from there, I think it's just going to be even more of a whirlwind, because you and I are going to lasso in all these other podcast hosts, guests in different seasons, whatever we figure out makes the most sense, to have them come on here and share the same experiences that you and I have been going through, which everyone will find entertaining, and I would even argue incredibly valuable too.
Yeah. And I dig that the framing of it is that it is kind of ass backwards, because to me, this is how you build a podcast. And it's only after having, I'm on my 5th, 6th, 7th, 10th podcast. I'm less about one podcast that I've done for 1,000 episodes. I have multiple different projects that I've done in podcasts. And what I've learned is so much about the planning process and what things you have to think through at the beginning and how you structure yourself for success. Partly that's the ADHD that I just know that I need structure and routine to make a thing happen. But also it's what I've learned about what makes for a successful show that can go the distance and actually get across the finish line, is you have to think about some things in advance. And that is completely ass backwards from the way most people do it. They have a concept, they jump on, they start recording, and then they're like, oh crap, I need show art. Oh crap, I need a website for it. Oh crap, I need to think about how I'm going to market this. Wait, I need a logo. There's just,
you need a theme song. I mean, you need everything.
Here.
It's the Post Pod Show.
You can't beat that. To be
love that guy.
That's amazing.
I love the.
Yeah, the little pop at the end. And since you sent that to me weeks ago, that has been routinely just popping in my head at random. I don't know if it's happened to you, but I'll just be like in the car and I'll just be driving. I got my kids in the back. We had just played Superman theme song for the 20th time. And then just all of a sudden,
It's the Post Pod Show.
in my head.
I'm excited about all that. I keep thinking about what most people don't know, because I think, remember when I was growing up, and I'm a little older than Jeff. I'll leave it at that. Or just there's probably about a decade between us, maybe a little more. And but we grew up in an era where we always saw content that was in that finished, polished format. And then someone in the 80s, a long time ago, it might have been Dick Clark, by the way. Remember TV's bloopers and practical jokes? You remember that show?
I do remember, some blooper related shows. I don't know if I remember that exact one, but
well, there were all these shows that were like Candid Camera and all these stuff where they showed funny instances, and a lot of times people were just it was the first dose of reality TV. But what we loved about the bloopers were we would watch a show that we've seen the finished product that was great. And the bloopers were the best because you would see these really funny things where people got stuff wrong. They started laughing, scenes went wrong. And to me, that was even better than the actual content itself of the show that you wanted to see.
Love outtakes.
Right. So all those outtakes, we see it in movies all the time. I remember this goes back way into the 70s. Burt Reynolds made those Smokey and the Bandit movies and the Cannonball movies. And literally the entire credit roll would be all the bloopers throughout the scenes of the movie, and a lot of other producers and directors have inserted them in because they're amazing and they're so entertaining and funny.
That's incredible. Marvel should do that before they do the after credit scene. They should just have all the bloopers as they're rolling the other stuff. That'd be brilliant.
But I think that's part of what this is. And I have to understand that some of the stuff we want to share is the stuff that goes wrong in these podcasts. I mean, our good friends, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner, who host the Nice Guys on Business podcast, right?
Among others.
But specifically what they used to do this thing where they would play the Lady of Ipanema, the music, dun, 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 when they had technical difficulties. And for the record, there was one particular episode, I will never forget this. This thing ran for 30 minutes and and one of them was on. They were trying, I think Strickland was on. He's like, Doug, are you there? Are you there? And I don't know. He had technical issues. His Zoom crashed, his video crashed, his audio, his computer needed to be rebooted. Who knows? Whatever it was. And here was this recorded content. And I'm listening to it going, this is better than whatever the original episode was supposed to be.
That is absolutely brilliant, and I'm immediately stealing that. So I actually have on my my whole setup, I have a thing that's like ready and prompted for when things go wrong. I have this. I took it from The Simpsons, but it's this technical difficulties little thing that goes on. So it goes from this one. There's 3 of them. So these are all the ones from The Simpsons. I stole them because I just thought it was so absolutely hilarious. But I love having music with it. That's a good idea. I'm stealing that. Doug Strick, I'm stealing.
I think I did too. I used the theme from the Pink Panther when that happened.
But that's good.
And a lot of times, by the way, if you've ever had one of those interviews, and a lot of listeners need to know this. When we interview people, we don't always know where those people are when they come on the shows. And this happens on my show a lot. I one time had somebody and we send them scheduling links and ways for them to come on the show. And they come into the show and now they're on. And now it turns out, hi, I'm coming to you from Denmark. I just interviewed a guy who was in Mumbai, India. And I had no idea. I thought his original time zone when we sent the thing up was he was in Mexico. So he's global, he's all over the place. And now there's a huge transmission issue. The video wasn't working and everything was delayed. And there was a period of a blackout, a good minute and a half where you hear me just going, whatever. And to make the whole show go, you could edit it, you can cut it. And that's where that whole using Lady in Ipanema, or we use the Pink Panther theme, came in. And I said, this is actually better than the content, whatever it was. It just is a good filler, and it makes it a lot easier for those that have to edit. But we have a lot of topics I think we're going to cover on this show.
We have so many topics. I mean, just for season 1, we came up with 18 just off the top of our head of ideas of things that podcasters have experienced, that they've gone through, things that have gone well, things that have not gone well, sort of the murky behind the scenes sort of stuff that people don't really know about. And I think there's some good fertile ground for us to find some funny stories, to find some heartwarming stories. I just think that we're going to be able to do some really cool stuff. And I think the format that you brought, to me for this, and you were like, hey, I think we should do this show. Such a good format, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this.
I also think you're going to hear, listeners, viewers, the two of us get really passionate in venting a little bit, because
Legit.
we legitimately love what we do when we have a chance to create this content. And I think when you pour your heart into something, sometimes when things don't go as planned, or they're frustrating, or they're issues, you're going to hear vents, run-ons, the two of us going on tangents to talk about stuff that literally pissed us off, and share it with you, because it's not only is it'll probably be entertaining for you, but it's also unbelievable, some of the stuff that you'll go through, recognizing that we use this medium as a foray into our businesses, and it's our time. So we're very passionate and concerned about it. So you will hear that feeling of almost like, how could you do this to us type of thing. Yeah. So
don't you know who I am?
Never at that level,
Yeah, no, it'll be good though. It'll be good. I'm excited for the post-pod show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a good concept for our first season of this. I think we've kind of agreed that to start with, we're looking at this as like a mini series. We're going to release it as, a limited run podcast. We'll have a limited number of episodes, and then kind of decide where we go from there. But we do back pocket, little idea percolating. We do have an idea for the second season.
Oh, we do.
So we'll see where it goes, man. But to start with, let's just do the post pod show. Let's get to various episodes. So here we go.
It's the post pod show.
Welcome back to the post pod show. I am Jeff Gibbard, and you are
Lou Diamond.
That's right. That is your name. You got bonus points on that for getting that right. Today we're going to talk about technical difficulties during recording. You've never experienced this, right? Like every podcast goes absolutely perfectly.
No runs, no drips, no errors. I've never had one of these technical problems.
Never
of course. They're
never
endless.
A hum on the microphone. Yeah. No Zoom glitches. No bandwidth issues. No internet going out.
The technical difficulties, I think we've also, how we become like a victim of our own success in a lot of ways.
I think about this all the time. A victim of, cry for me.
Well, think of it this way, right? Like, the first days of podcasting were the two cans going back and forth with a wire in between, and hopefully we catch some recordings. Yeah. You remember those days? And eventually we found a way to record stuff on tape recorders, and digital came along, the internet came along, and all of a sudden they had this medium of podcasts. And the ways that we would communicate, because most shows are interview shows, as opposed to just the guest waxing poetic or giving a message, whatever they be. Most shows are two people speaking together. And it is in that area, it is in the two people connecting together, that technical difficulties have taken a whole new range of challenges that can be ear-popping, frustrating, editor disaster nightmares, whatever you want. Stuff that literally will keep you going, oh my God, to get this finished product of this episode into something that will actually be good is going to take a lot of effort. So yes, technical difficulties happen from the minute we turn on a microphone to the minute we try to hit the record button until we hit stop at the end. And there's just an umpteen number, and I can't wait to talk about them with you, Jeff, because
you mentioned that like adding a guest increases the number. You and I actually have been together on an episode with not just and another guest. We've actually been on several where it's like a round table, right? So you got four. So the more variables you introduce, the more potential technical difficulties you introduce. Different people have different internet speeds, the broadcast from different places. But I would say that as I reflect upon the what did you call it, the victim of our own success, yes. That the technical difficulties that I've experienced throughout my career have fallen into, I would say, 2 or 3 different categories. The first is user error. That's just like straight up, I did something stupid. Mm-hmm. 2 is sort of like equipment problems. And then I guess I would say that the third one is a different level of equipment problems, which is just subpar equipment causing issues, right? Yeah. So I recently went back and I have all of my old stuff from forever ago archived on a hard disk. And I said, you know what? It's no longer available. I'm going to re-upload it as an archive so that I now have the ability to go back and listen to some of my old stuff. So I recently began uploading my first podcast. It was called Social Echoes. I was back in like 2015. And I was listening to that. I was listening to the True Voice Media podcast called Conversations, which was my first real podcast, I guess I would say. It was like the evolution of the first one. And I was listening to the audio quality. And
oh my goodness.
Oh, sweet, sweet. I've never heard any of your like old stuff, but your voice has always sounded crystal clear to me. I was listening to some of it. I was like, good Lord, where were you recording this and what were you speaking into? It was the can with the string. It was horrible.
So there's two key elements to what you're saying there, and I'm totally agreement. Okay, one is obviously I'm working backwards on your issues, which was like, you know, the types of equipment and the equipment malfunctions. But you know, to me, it's really comes down to two things. There's the microphone itself, and then there's the lack of something. It could be the lack of the microphones, the lack of headphones to bifurcate the sound, or you know, you get guests who go into these conference rooms to go record themselves, and it's an echo chamber that you just can't believe. And the most common technical difficulty that I have run into with the sound is the guest does not have headphones. They may have a microphone. My voice comes through their computer, and that speakerphone effect takes place with their microphone. So they get cut up like that when they're talking. You know what I'm talking about? That's the number one technical difficulty that I have found. And you can see it if you ever look at what the audio files look and what the tracks look like. When you see the sound coming, your voice sometimes is coming through their microphone in the recording on the stuff they're doing. And it's just awful to the ears. It makes it difficult to always hear what they say. Sometimes I get cut off. That technical difficulty, out of all the ones that drives me crazy, that's the one that drives me the most crazy. I put it in my notes when I send to the people, please get headphones, please.
Yeah, I have that in my onboarding as well about the headphones. And we have an episode coming up where we're going to completely drag in the kindest, most informative way. We're going to drag the guests for poor audio quality. I'm curious what some of the technical difficulties you've experienced on your end have been. And I'm going to tell you my number one most traumatic technical difficulty that I have ever had. And then I'm going to let you tell yours.
Okay.
Here's mine.
You go first.
I'm going to tell you mine first. First one. This is the biggest technical difficulty I ever had. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but if it did, you remember it. I had an interview with Scott Stratton back when I had, love Scott, right? Scott is an amazing speaker. He's an amazing podcast guest. He's just an amazing all around. Yeah. I mean, just an all around amazing conversationalist. And like, dude is just awesome to talk to.
That's a nice ponytail too, by the way.
Yeah. Man bun.
Excuse me. That's a better call.
And it was back in, God, it was like 2015, 2016, 2014. It was in that zone of time. And I had him on my show Conversations. And we had, I shit you not, it was 11 out of 10 interview. We just had a great time, great conversation, got through the whole thing. Everything to me sounded amazing. My mic was actually sounding good that day. No echoes, no interruptions, no background noise. I forgot to hit record. The whole thing gone. None of it. Didn't happen. There was zero recorded evidence of this conversation. And I had to let him know that. And I can tell you, I have never, as a podcaster, felt more embarrassed and ashamed than that email. That was the biggest.
That's the user error. There goes your user error.
And that's why it came to me first, because it is seared into my consciousness as the number one technical difficulty I've ever had. I used to have a sticky note right here for before every episode. It was a sticky note that said, press record, because I never want to experience that again. I actually usually hit record nice and early so that even if I have extra, I'll just cut it out rather than miss the interview.
Wow. By the way, that sucks. By the way, that actually happened when my first appearance on Nice Guys on Business. For the first 4 minutes of the interview with Doug Sandler, he forgot to hit record, and we had really good, funny stuff in the opening.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it's actually more funny that we're making fun of it as we are today. Yeah, I have a tie for the two worst experiences, and they're kind of related, and I'll do them quickly. One was I used to use a service. I won't say their name just because of, but basically they had a backup type of system. I recorded the service with them, and the actual content got lost. And it was a great conversation with someone who actually has become a very good friend, and also another professional speaker, Stacey Hunke, who's based in Chicago. And it was the first time, she was one of the early interviews of Thrive Loud in the teens, like 16, 17 or something like that. And the feeling that I had of just, oh my God, the content is lost. And I felt just awful. And now I had to like call her up and say, can we do it again? Because I really wanted to do it. I cared so much about it. And I remembered really the level of rage I had with that company that they lost the content. So they'd actually, like, it was recorded and something got scratched, some technical error. Tied with my in-person interview with Jackie the Joke Man Martling, who used to be on the Howard Stern show, at his house in Long Island in Bayville. This is the technical difficulty. I had one of those. He wanted to do it in person. He wanted me to drive out to Bayville, Long Island, which is not that close to me, just for the record. Go to his house. I've met him before. I actually was on his radio show. It's actually what kind of got me into wanting to do podcasting. He used to have a show on Sirius XM, and I got to tell jokes, and it was called, The Joke Hunt was what it was called, just a whole play on words. And we're there at his house, 90 degrees outside. His air conditioning is not working, and there's a lawnmower going on outside and construction work somewhere across the street as well. So you could, between birds chirping, wind blowing, there's like, we're sweating because it's 90 degrees. The guy doesn't have any AC, and we've got these two microphones, and we're pretty close to it. And all I'm thinking about is what the background sound is going to sound like, right? Yeah. There's an entire segment of just all you hear in the background is like and I'm going bananas, and I remember we had to edit it out and all that stuff. So those are the two. Those lost the content, and then just the sound quality from the surrounding environment were just awful, making the recording terrible.
So you're a true pro at this. How much does that throw off your game when you're interviewing someone? Because I know for me, if I have the sort of thing because of the ADHD where, like, if I hear someone breathing too loud, I could get taken out of something. I'm like, don't you understand? I'm in my focus mode. How much does that throw you off when you hear the background stuff where you hear a hum on the line or, whatever, a high pitch something or other?
Back then, it definitely affected me. Back in the early days, not having done this a lot, and this is in like 2016, 2017, when we were doing first doing this stuff, or like early 2017, it definitely, the quality of the recording to me was so essential because I was so concerned with how many people would be listening to it. Because I had so many listeners back then. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. You got to watch out for the 3 people listening.
Yes, listening? Exactly. I mean, my mom, my dad, and my cousin might have an issue with it. So back then it wouldn't rattle me. I would get through it. Today it does. Today I just roll over because one, the technology has gotten much better on how we stream and the quality of recording. I mean, there are sound levels that we can check. There's really cool tools that we could use. So today it's not as bad. Today, and if there is an issue, it might bother me. Like I'll hear some popping noise. And in the beginning, I've gotten really good. Let's try to visually set somebody up. You and I just did this before we did recording. Like there's video of this, and we try to make our heads about the same size in our video, or the graphics that we see up here. Right? We're trying to line this stuff up because we've done it so many times. I'll tell you what does annoy me though. Not having that thing I described before, not having headphones to split up the microphone kills me when that delayed effect comes in and I can almost hear me through their speakers. That drives me bananas. Or no microphone. You were talking about bad equipment. When they have no microphone, I want to say this to the listeners. We're talking through 2 pretty nice microphones. We've definitely upgraded the quality of our equipment over the years.
Yep.
I still have my old Blue Yeti up there. Which
I don't know. I gave away my Blue Yeti as a gift to someone who was just starting a podcast.
Yeah. By the way, for those who want to start podcasts,
it's a great starter mic.
It's a great starter mic. It also happens to literally pick up sonar radar from like 16 miles away. It is probably like the biggest sponge, and it's not as laser focused. So the equipment's gotten better. But when they have nothing, it's like, I don't know what they're thinking about. Like when they're trying to get the technical difficulties because it's the sound of their quality. We can edit things and make people sound better, but when you're recording something in a difficult spot to hear you, we want to hear you. Sound great. Be spectacular. Sound spectacular. That's what I always say.
Be wonderful. And I think that's the message of dealing with technical difficulties. Be wonderful. Be thoughtful. So final words on technical difficulties. Anything that podcasters can do to avoid it on their end? Anything that everyone should watch out for?
I'd say the number one thing you need to watch out for is something will go wrong. It will never be perfect. You will never be in an inside insulated, perfectly innocuous type of environment that will do it. Something will go wrong. So set your expectation that you're going to have to adapt to something. And that'll get your brain set to be able to handle it. And do the best job you can as a host to pre-communicate to your guest to get a microphone, to get headphones, to be in a quiet place. This is stuff that you could actually send them in their reminder messages. And that will at least get them to think that they know that they should do it. It won't always fix it, but it'll improve the likelihood that you'll have a great conversation when you do.
I would say my advice is similar, and it would, the big one would be try to control the things you can actually control. So hit record. Whatever you got to do to make sure you do that. Because trust me, you don't want that one on your conscience. So hit record. Make sure you have great internet. Pay for the better internet. If you're going to be a podcaster, like I'm on a gigabit connection with, through FiOS. I'm ready to go, baby. But try and make sure, you've got the best you can. I mean, obviously, if you can't afford it or anything, I'm not trying to throw that on someone, but whatever the best you can get in terms of things you can control, do it. As far as your microphone, your headphones, your mixer, any of that sort of stuff, just try and make sure that you're set up in a way that you feel comfortable and you feel confident in your, in the tools that you have. I think that's another thing, making sure you understand the tools you have. Like don't go full tilt and get yourself like a 20 channel mixer with all these knobs that you don't know what to do with. Get something that can get the job done and then upgrade over time. You mentioned it. You've got your Blue Yeti on the shelf and you got a better mic now. We all start somewhere. So start where you are and then upgrade over time, get better and get the tools of the trade there. And then for the rest of the things, like the guest's internet connection or, just all of a sudden something happens in the background that you can't control. That stuff you just got to let go. Sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to lose episodes. You're going to lose portion of episodes. I've had guests where their internet just drops out as they're about to drop the hammer, man. They're about to give us the goods and just you can't hear them, right? It's terrible. So you just got to let it go. Got to let it happen.
And know when your landscapers are going to be working, because there's nothing worse than the buzzing lawnmower in the background when you have to go.
Yeah, exact same thing. If you can, try to not have your house be along a flight path. So if you can, just up and move the entire house several towns over so that you don't have planes overhead.
This is the Post Pod Show.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Lou.
It's the Post Pod Show.